space-obsessed kid for as long as I can remember, and I always wanted to go into engineering, but it turned out physics was not really my forte. And then law school happened almost accidentally. And then when I was in my second year in law school, I came across this competition called the Manfred Lachs Space Law Moot Court Competition, and it's organized by the National Institute of Space Law. And it was such a thrilling moment for me because I realized that, that's sort of my way to veer back to space somehow. And then I followed that up with a policy internship at the Indian Space Research Organization. And I started volunteering for a youth organization that works in space policy, the Space Generation Advisory Council. And then I did a summer program with the International Space University. It was the Southern Hemisphere Summer Space Program in Adelaide. And it was the most amazing all-out space experience that I've ever had, and that was really what ignited my passion for space to take it up professionally and as a career. This reminds me of something that I had heard from an acquaintance. And he said, if your dream doesn't scare you, it isn't big enough. And so I think, in essence, it's about venturing outside your comfort zone. And I remember I was absolutely terrified throughout when I was working on my first project. And that initial phase of feeling like a fish out of water yields a very steep learning curve, or at least it did so in my case. And so I think it's really important to remain open to opportunities as and when they come along. And I suppose most of my career has been shaped by a string of serendipitous coincidences. So it's really about remaining open to opportunities. And I don't mean to discard planning or strategizing by any means, but in my case, what has worked is having a flexible strategy aligned with my core area of interest, as opposed to a very rigid, charted map of what my career should look like. So I think, in essence, it's really about embracing any and every kind of opportunity. I feel a need to admit that any form of mentoring that I generally tend to engage in is more of a selfish deed than anything else, really, because I consider myself very fortunate to have received a lot of support and guidance from some of the most respectable names in the industry. And it feels, to a certain extent, morally obligatory to pass it forward as much as I can. I receive a lot of questions from young graduates and students who are interested in space law, who want to learn about space law, and there's always a certain amount of hesitation about whether this is a viable career or just an interesting topic to write a paper on. I volunteered quite a bit with young entrants into the industry when I was working with the Space Generation Advisory Council, and I try to dispel the myth as much as I can that you don't just need to be an engineer to be part of the space and satellite industry. One of the main pieces of advice that I try to offer to young people who aim to come into this industry is that when you're considering an opportunity, it's always good to view it from the lens of your area of interest or your passion, and to strip away the extraneous considerations such as what is the average pay package like, or is space law as lucrative as corporate M&A, or which companies should I only be looking at. So I think what really worked in my case was to pursue excellence and follow your passion, and the rest of it will follow naturally. We always hear about how important networking is in this industry, and I have been really fortunate and lucky to have had a great number of advocates and mentors who have supported me and guided me at the beginning of my career. So I cannot emphasize enough on the importance of genuinely investing in relationships in the industry. And you'd be surprised how often a professional equation translates into a really warm personal friendship. I feel that my response to this might be a bit biased, and the reason I say that is because when I authored my master's dissertation on the legal aspects of space debris remediation and on-orbit satellite servicing, all of these technologies, they seemed quite distant at that point, and this was about 5 years ago. So it's been absolutely thrilling for me to watch the evolution of these technologies and what kind of non-traditional commercial applications that are arising from these different proximity and rendezvous operation technologies. So I think that's a really exciting phase to watch out for.